Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Curves Workbench and understanding how to use the Freehand BSpline. If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via Ko-Fi or Coffee at ko-fi.com/MANG0 or via PayPal at paypal.com/paypalme/DarrenBEstone. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content. And that's at patreon.com/mangojellysolutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos. So I'm in the Curves Workbench, which is an add-on workbench from Tools and Add-on Manager, and we can find the Curves Workbench from in there. We're interested in this tool here, the Freehand BSpline. If I select that tool from the screen, a line will be added with 3 points. The points are coplanar at the moment. If I look from the top, you can see how those points are aligned along that plane. This is an actual B-spline. I can manipulate these points by hovering over them so they're pre-selected and clicking the mouse to the highlight in green and dragging the point out. You'll notice that by the size of the point, we get 2 blue lines. If I drop that point, you see that the blue line connects the point we've dragged and the opposite point together. This is known as a segment line. These segment lines can be selected and moved as well. So I'm clicking and dragging, and you can see the coordinates on those points that connect that line displayed on screen and changing as we move this about, as we drag it about. And when we drag, we can drag this segment to where we want. If we want to be more accurate when we're dragging, we can select, say, this point, hold down Shift, and we can drag this at smaller intervals. And the same with the segments. Click the segment, hold down Shift, and we can drag that at smaller intervals. When I'm happy where this is going to be, then I need to release the mouse first and then the Shift. If I click and drag and hold down the Shift, dragging at smaller intervals. If I release the Shift and accidentally move my mouse pointer, then you'll notice that the line will snap back to where my mouse pointer is and move at the ordinary speed. Let's drop this point over here. You notice that in the tree view, it's highlighted in yellow. This is in edit mode. If I double click this, this spline will come out of edit mode, and we can do our normal modeling with the spline, such as sweeps, lofts, etc. Let's double click the spline again to place it back in edit mode. Let's have a look at the options of the Freehand BSpline. By rolling over the icon on the toolbar, we see the control keys. First of all, let's have a look at the A, the select tool. If I already have something selected, say this segment, and I use A, you see nothing happens. The shortcut is actually Shift A. Holding down Shift and hitting A on the keyboard will unselect that segment. Hitting A again will select all. Using the same shortcut key, we can toggle between the selection. We can't do anything with this B-spline just yet until we use one of the other options. We have just these segments selected. If I try to click and drag one of these segments, then we only can drag one segment. Shift A, unselect, Shift A, select all. Let's have a look at our next option, the insert point. I've got these 2 segments selected. If I hit I on the keyboard to insert a point, a new point has been added to those segments, splitting them in 2. These points can be selected and dragged into position, the same as the new segments. If I click a single segment and hit I on the keyboard, we insert a new point. You notice that I'm looking from the top view at the moment. So all of this is happening on one plane. So all these points at the moment are coplanar to that plane. If I go to the front and start moving them upon this plane now, move that segment, I've deformed the curve across 2 planes. We can also control select segments. So I select this one and control select this one. I can drag those two just by holding down that control key. I also can hit I on the keyboard, and that creates new points on those selected segments. The next option we're going to use is the set unset tangency. Now this depends on the view that we're in. So at the moment I'm looking from the front, and I can take this line and control select this one and hit T on the keyboard. That makes those segments tangent to the current view. If I bring this around this way, you can see those are deformed along this plane. But if I set the viewpoint to say here and hit T, then we've made that tangent to our view. If I move the mouse without selecting, then we destroy that. So I'm just going to move it over here somewhere and hit T. Click to drop. We've made that tangent to our view. Let's now align some segment lines. So I'm going to take this line and control select this line. And then remember, if we start moving the mouse, it will pick those up. So it's best to keep the mouse pointer stationary. If I hit P, that will align those lines. Click to accept. So those are aligned now. Just going to double click the Freehand BSpline and delete it and create a new one. And create a simple curve from the top view. So a simple curve like this. And we'll place some more control points in there using I. I'm going to take this one and control select this one, not moving the mouse. Let go of the control key and hit P to align those, and then click the mouse. So those segments are aligned now. But we're still keeping the curvature. So remembering we're looking at the top plane, make sure we're on the top plane. I move this curvature over here and selecting these two, let go of the control key and just hit P on the keyboard. That aligns those two now. Remember, if we move, we break that alignment, hit P, and now click to accept. So you can see that there. Those are aligned and we've got that curvature. If I wanted to say take this curve and keep it aligned with this segment, then I would set a linear interpolation. To do that, we use the L on the keyboard. So that's take this line here and hit L on the keyboard. What happens is that the curve in that segment is now in line with the segment itself. If I take this one and hit L, you see this one is aligned. Same with this side, hit L, and now this one is aligned. We can move the point or the segment, and let's click on the point and move that. And you can see how that segment is behind there now. To unset, we just click on the line that clicks on the segment behind and hit L again. We get the segment back, and if I hover over the point, we can see that curvature in there. We can restrict the axes that these points move upon. So if I was in between views, let's say about here, I can move this point in this direction, which is moving it along all the axes, depending on which viewpoint that I'm within. If I'm within this viewpoint and start moving this about, and if I kept the mouse pointer held down so I can drag this and hit Y on the keyboard, I can now only move this along the Y axis. So you can see that's only moving along the Y there. If I hit Z, we're only moving it along the Z axis. Let go to drop and accept, and you can see that there. Let's bring this around here and click on it and hit Y. We only can move that along the Y axis this way. You can see the Y axis running this way. Now, one thing that's missing from the drop down here is the delete of control points. So if I move this around and select this control point here and hit delete on the keyboard, that deletes that control point and the segment is removed as well. If I delete a control point, say in the middle of two segments, this one here, and hit delete, make sure I get it first, and hit delete, then you'll see the segment will reattach itself to the other point, the nearest point, and the point is removed from the curve. To apply the changes, we just double click on the Freehand BSpline or hit Q on the keyboard, which applies the changes and quits the editing. To come back in, just double click on the B-spline, and that places it in edit mode. When we added this B-spline, there was nothing in the 3D view. So as long as nothing's selected, it will be dropped in the middle of the 3D view. So if I view and toggle the axis cross, we can see it's placed at 0, 0, the start of it. If I select, say, a vertex of another object, this Freehand B-spline, and then create a new Freehand B-spline, let's make sure we're out of edit mode of the other one. So I click this vertex here. What will happen is the B-spline will be attached to that vertex. So you can see that point has been selected and attached to this vertex here. And I can't move that at the moment. It's snapped to that vertex. If I want it unsnapped from that vertex, I select it and hit S on the keyboard. And now that is mobile. So that's attached to my mouse pointer now. And we just click to drop. If I want to snap it back, then I select the point, Control select the vertex and hit S on the keyboard. And that snaps it into position. Let's double click on that B-spline. I don't have to attach to a vertex. I could attach to an edge, say this curve here, by clicking anywhere along this edge and using the Freehand B-spline, and it will attach at that point. If I click here, where I've clicked, that will attach to that point. I can use the control click by clicking this edge at this point here, and then control clicking this edge at this point, and then use the Freehand B-spline, and we'll create a B-spline across there. The number of points will be equal to the points that I've selected. So if I select this one now and hit I, another point will be added. You notice that these points, they are snapped to this curve and move around it. So they are mobile and they're highlighted in blue. Whereas the one we had on this one, let's double click on that Freehand B-spline and take this one and double click on it. The point is in white. So you see that point there, it's in white. So that's locked into position there. The other point is in black, this point here. That means that's fully mobile. So we've got black, white, and also blue. Don't worry about this line here, it's just because I double clicked it. If I click off, you can see that line is gone. We don't have to just connect to edges and vertices. Let's get rid of these. So it's more hit delete. And I'm going to come into the part workbench and add a cube. Come back over to the curves workbench. And we can select, go around and control select each of these points and add the B-spline. So we've added the points on a cube, like so. We can see how those are conformed to that cube. Let's double click that and hit delete. Now, if I select the faces, at those points on those faces where I've selected, and add the Freehand B-spline, you can see if B-spline has been added, and we've got a point in pink. What I'm going to do is select the cube and press the spacebar. So those points are mobile and they're attached to a face. Let's bring back the cube and come down to the View tab. The draw style is solid at the moment. That's not the one I want. I want the display mode. So I want to change it to a wireframe so we can see what's happening. So we've got the wireframe in there and we're just using this as a support object. So I can move this point around this face, but it's restricted by the borders of that face. Right click to cancel, because if we're trying to move this around this border, I can drop it by making sure I'm in some blank space. But if I'm over this object, sometimes if I take my finger off the mouse, then this will still be mobile. Which unfortunately it's not doing at the moment. But if we get that and it's still moving about, if I take my finger off the mouse like now, I take my finger off the mouse and just moving my mouse, I haven't got it held down. If you get this, then just right click and it will drop it into place. So we're using this object as a support. Move this about and it's being used as a support there. Remember to take the points, if I want to remove them, take the point and hit S to unsnap. I can now move this into any position that I want. Let's double click to set the Freehand B-spline. Let's have a look at the properties of the B-spline on the Data tab. And you can see that if I double click on it, we have 3 points. We have the data here, which I can look at. You can see we've got the first point in here. And we have a table with all the points. So you can see the X, Y, and Z position of all these points. Also notice that we have the data type. 0 means the point hasn't been snapped, and 1 means that it has. This is useful when you're doing Python programming. We can select the table and edit the points from here. So we can change the points by the X, Y, and Z, and then set that value and hit OK. You notice that it's saying it needs recompute. I'll double click that, and then that point will actually move in 3D space. Again, this is quite handy when you're using Python programming. Just going to create a new B-spline and double click to set the points. We have this parameterization, this one here. Let's add some more points. So I'm going to add a point and another one, and double click the Freehand B-spline to set. Parameterization is at 1 at the moment. I'm going to change this to 0, and you notice there was a shift with this curve. I'm going to make sure nothing's selected to create a new sketch along the XY plane. I'm going to create a polyline and add a number of points. Hit escape again, and close. Looking from the top. I'm going to take the sketch, come down to the view, come up and set the display mode to points only. So I have points on the screen that I can use. I'm now going to use the Freehand B-spline and snap each of these points by selecting the point on the B-spline, control clicking the point and hitting the S key. We'll snap these points to each of these. And I'll delete this point here, hitting delete. And double clicking the Freehand B-spline. The curvature follows those points. If I click on the Freehand B-spline and come down to the data, at the moment the parameterization is 1. If I change this to 0, you can see how that changes. I'm going to make a duplicate of the Freehand BSpline. Edit, duplicate selection, uncheck the sketch, and hit OK. Now I have two. I'm going to keep one at parameterization 0, and the other is going to have a parameterization of 1. And you notice the difference between those two. So changing the weight can fine-tune that curve. Periodic will allow me to close that curve. So you can see we've created a closed curve there. Let's get rid of this one, hit delete. And let's set that back to false. And also we have the tolerance here. And this is useful when it comes to sweeps. What you'll find is when you sweep across this Freehand BSpline, sometimes the sweep won't take. We can set the tolerance to allow the sweep to conform to that spline. So I hope that's given you an idea of how to use the Freehand BSpline in the Curves Workbench and the different operations we can use with the shortcut keys. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope to see you in the new one. If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via Ko-Fi or Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/MANG0 or via PayPal at paypal.com/paypalme/DarrenBEstone. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content, and that's at patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos. I thank everybody that's donated so far. It really helps to keep the lights on so I can produce more content and also expand the channel. Thank you for liking, commenting and subscribing to these videos, and I hope to see you again in the next one.